happy Saturday. I did a good job on my front yard for this holiday weekend. I was out there earlier. I also put some compost around some of my different plants. Oh, there goes a little finch that's been sitting on its eggs. And there's Avery. Avery's just kind of relaxing on this afternoon. I need to actually get her out for a walk. Yesterday I went with some friends. We went out to Afton, which is just past Charlottesville, and we went to Silverback Distillery, so I finally got my rye whiskey. It's actually very good. So yesterday was kind of a non-productive day, which I guess is okay to have, but I'm so used to trying to get things done that when I don't get enough done, it's like, oh, I haven't gotten enough done. But I did get my artwork shipped out, and that was important. And so today, I'm being more productive again. I got the yard done. Oh yeah, I also bottled up my sodas. The strawberry lemon thyme ginger beer is really good. So now I need to figure out what I'm going to do next. I need to get Avery out for a walk. I don't know if it's going to be raining tomorrow at all. If it isn't, then I might work on some more prints. But mostly I wanted to do this video as a response to Jackie's video on anxiety. And when I'm talking about anxiety, I'm kind of talking about like a clinical level of anxiety. And I don't know if there have been any like fMRIs done on people who suffer from anxiety disorder. I think it's a spectrum, and but my experience first of all, I've always had an anxious nature, even as a child. I think my mother is an anxious person, and I was, and before she had me, she had 3 miscarriages and 4 children before that. So I have a feeling she was probably not real relaxed during her pregnancy with me. So even as a child, even as a 5-year-old in kindergarten, I remember having an anxious nature, just worried a lot. It wasn't that I was worried all the time. You know, I see little videos of me, and I remember playing and having a very imaginative nature. Oh, and oh, by the way, something I read recently about I think that I've read that people who are anxious have a tendency to have higher IQs and be more creative. But you know, you can skew results in any way. Well, it says that it kind of spurs people on to problem solving if you are anxious. So I'll get back to in childhood, and then I was pretty like very focused and but worried at the same time, even through high school and all. And then I remember when I was like, I think in my early 20s, I had gone to this naturopath down in San Marcos who put me on the most ridiculous diet. I lost so much weight. People thought I was anorexic, and it was just that I was following this diet to the letter. And during that time, when I was very underweight and probably malnourished, actually, when I think about it, I started to develop a more sort of overt sense of panic disorder, as in a panic attack, feeling like when I was going to go to sleep at night, worried that there was something that just didn't feel right in my body. And it was partially my mind too, that I was going to die. And then I sort of gained weight and moved on with my life and got married, and I had my daughter, and then I had my son. So at that time I was probably, how old was I? I was like in my early 30s. And I think it was when my son was still an infant, and we were living in Phoenix at the time, and I was taking care of the two kids. I was at home. I was at home alone significantly, a significant amount of time with the kids, because my husband at the time, he traveled a lot. So I distinctly remember the first time where I felt like I was having a panic attack that had physical symptoms. Now, the physical symptoms, some of the more, kind of common ones are like a shortness of breath, a tightness in your chest, feeling like you're going to pass out. So we were I remember I was sitting in the back seat with the kids, and Julian was in his car seat, and I remember feeling like I was going to pass out, and I didn't know why. And that was the first time that I really noticed it and kind of put two and two together. And I was having insomnia at the time, and it recurred a number of times during that period of time. Sorry, I'm gonna hang on. I don't want to make this too long in one fell swoop, because sometimes the file doesn't work. So it was happening, and it was a scary feeling for me, because it felt like something was wrong with my body, but really it was more of well, how can you separate the two? I really believe that anxiety often arises in combination with certain physical things. For me, the triggers for anxiety is that something is wrong with my body, and everybody has different triggers. And for me, it's always been something is wrong with my body. It's like something's going wrong. I don't understand this sensation, this feeling, and then that will kick off the sense of like a dizziness, and it's just a scared feeling. And what else was I going to say about that? So what I noticed a lot is that for me, I had this sense of just being really closed in my head. Like I couldn't break out of the experience of panic, and it kind of doubled down on the panic. It's a real, for me, anxiety disorder manifests as a very closed off feeling, just kind of trapped in my head. Partially because I know it's anxiety, and I know that something isn't really going wrong with my body. And for myself, I think it's just a build-up over time of living with a lot of stress and worry. And when you have to function, or when I would have to function, I could keep it under control. And in those moments where I would be able to relax a little bit is frequently when it would come up. I remember once when Matt was out of town and I was home with the kids alone, I started feeling like it might have been like heart palpitations or something, and I knew that a panic attack was coming on. So I called a friend of Matt's who's a psychologist, just because I knew I needed to talk to somebody. So when I experience or have experienced a panic episode, it helps to talk to somebody, it helps to get up and move around, it helps to ground in my body. If I can ground in my body, sometimes I'll just find like some pressure points on the inside of my arms, and I'll just press. I'll get up and I'll jump around, even if it feels like I can't breathe, or or if my heart's palpitating. Sometimes it just helps to move around, because it pulls me into my body and out of this headspace that is telling me that something is wrong. And also another thing that helps is crying. If, for instance, the panic or anxiety comes up because I am not recognizing certain feelings, whether it's grief or some other kind of upset, and I'm just telling myself, oh, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, and not allowing those emotions to come up, I think it has in the past, and I keep saying in the past because I haven't, experienced real overt panic in some time, even with everything that I've been going through for the past few years. So if I was feeling panicky, I would actually kind of tap into something that would bring up an emotion, and the act of crying and releasing, of course crying releases endorphins, would allow the panic experience to dissipate. So after some time of dealing with it, I have learned when it feels like there's a panic experience that's about to arise, and I start with some self-talk saying, all right, we know everything's okay. Myself, I guess. Everything's going to be okay. Everything is okay. There's nothing that we have to like flip out about, or get dizzy, or pass out. Do some deep breathing, ground in the body, and just kind of observe it, but not go into it. And I have learned by doing that, that's a way to kind of cut off the actual panic attack before it gets going full force. So my experience with panic has been that it doesn't come from nothing, although it can feel like it. I think for myself, it is a cumulative, maybe even a subconscious kind of level of stress that I will just not really tap into, and perhaps not do the self-help efforts on a regular basis, like deep breathing, or getting enough exercise, or getting enough sleep, or drinking too much alcohol, or having too much caffeine, cumulatively over a period of time, and go, it's, that can play into that. So that's what the panic disorder for me has been. And while I will always probably have an anxious nature, recognizing that I have an anxious nature and understanding what I can do to help myself preemptively move in before an actual panic attack happens. And sometimes it comes up. Sometimes the panic attack comes up, I start to get dizzy, I put my head down. I breathe, I talk to myself, I talk to somebody else. I say, I have this panic thing, and it helps for me to talk to people, even if I'm someplace. It actually did happen once, now that I'm recalling, at a big gathering where I didn't know anybody else. And And that's another time where I can feel it arising if I'm going to do something really new. I can feel it. It feels kind of like a warm, but not a pleasant kind of warm, almost like a like prickly kind of warmth that starts coming up to from my belly to my chest. So I can feel it then, and then usually I'm not breathing deeply. So that's my experience with panic disorder and with anxiety. I think if I were to be diagnosed, I'd be diagnosed with mild anxiety and somewhat situational. It hasn't stopped me from doing anything. As a matter of fact, I would get really panicky about flying for a while, and I did use alprazolam for a number of years whenever I would fly. At first it didn't help at all, and little by little what using that medication did for me was that it would bring down the level of anxiety to the point where I could dissociate the feeling of anxiety with flying, because I started to associate feeling anxious with flying. And now I don't use anything because I've gotten myself to the point where I'm used to flying, and I'm used to, I've gotten used to feeling okay when I'm flying, even when there's turbulence and things like that. So that actually did help me. I haven't really used any other drugs for the panic other than that, because it hasn't been necessary for me. I do take motherwort on a regular basis, though. So that's my experience with anxiety. Just thought I would kind of chime in. All right, bye.